Ready to go? All right. So welcome to the presentation called Drawing with Connor. I'm known as Connor Good. On the internet, I'm known as Karmata Arts. If you've been to any local conventions in the Michigan or like Chicago area, you may have seen this panel as titled, Their Legs Are How Long? Because I'm here to teach you today about proportions. So let's talk about first, who am I? Let's picture me. I do that. I've been drawing in kind of like I call it the manga style, where it's more, it looks like the anime and the Japanese comics. I've been drawing in that style for over 25 years. I did the math today. I've been doing it since 8th grade. I am a combination of self-taught and classical training. I do have a handful of actual like art classes under my belt. I studied at a local art studio that happened to be near me. I used to do a bunch of art camps. I took classes there. And then when I became too old to do the art camps, I became a teacher at the local art studio. So continually growing my love for art. And then I also took classes while I was in high school, and I took a few classes while I was in college. And I am perpetually learning every day. And I have an addiction of how to draw books, which honestly isn't that bad. You just learn a lot. I also vend at conventions and small press shows. If you've ever heard of A2CAF, which is held here usually during the summer, there was also a fall version this year, which was really cool and successful. I've had a booth there where I bring a lot of my how-to guides, and I have like some comics and some art books and things that I've made there. And then, I also wrote and illustrated a book. This is the shameless self-promotion part of this presentation. Wrote and illustrated the book, Epic Cosplay Costumes, a step-by-step guide to making and sewing your own costume designs. Boop. It looks like that.
That we have at the library.
Oh, and we have it at the library. Yeah. So if you're interested in learning how to make costumes, which is the other thing I do with my free time, check out Epic Cosplay Costumes. I actually got to go to Japan this last year to do some cosplay stuff. So I've been doing cosplay for a while. I'm good. All right, so let's get into what is this workshop about? What will we be learning here? I'm gonna help you with tips on how to draw people with some realistic proportions. It's kind of like the base of where we're gonna start. What is a thing that a lot of like teachers will say is like, you have to learn the basics and the rules before you can break them. That's kind of where we're gonna go from here. We're just gonna draw a basic person, some regular proportions, and from there, the world is your oyster, because you know what's supposed to be what length, and you're like, cool, great, let's mix it up. I'm gonna give you a whole bunch of really fun shortcuts, which when we get there, you will laugh, trust me, to help determine your character's proportions. And at the very end, so the first like half hour-ish is where we're just gonna have this presentation. And then at the end, we're going to have a follow-along where I will move over to the camera over here, and I will draw a step, and then you guys will draw the same step. And together, we will draw a person. Okay, so first off, let's talk about people. What's inside? They're made of all sorts of stuff. What's inside ourselves? And they come in all shapes and sizes. Oh, right, we're covering an average shape figure. My apologies, I had my slides in the wrong order. So using these techniques that we're gonna be going through today, you can kind of like alter like the top, the bottom, lengths of arms, lengths of fingers, lengths of legs, what have you, and you can do all sorts of cool stuff from there. And then I did find this really cool picture. So this is a picture that's been floating around the internet for a while, where they took photographs of a whole bunch of Olympians of different sports, different things, and their wide variety of body shapes. So we're going over just a basic figure today, but you can draw so many different shapes. So there's a lot of different choices. All right, now we're going to the what's inside part. This is the part I want to talk about because I like skeletons. Skeletons are my favorite thing because they always look happy. You always see their smile. And one of the things we always had in my art class in high school that I really loved is we had one of those like plastic skeletons, and we would set him up in the center of the room and draw the skeleton. So that was always fun. Then on top, not on top, but somewhere around your skeletons, you've got your organs, you've got your muscles that are then on top, kind of protecting everything, and then what I like to call the insulation, also known as I like pizza. So here is kind of just a basic skeleton rundown. Look at that happy guy. And then this is one of the one of the like how to draw people books I've got on my shelf. Just took a couple scans of just like, here's some basic skeletal designs, here's some basic muscles. Don't worry, there's not gonna be a quiz on what all those words are. We'll just think about it and we'll go past it. So, you've gotten your how to draw book, you're ready to draw. How are we gonna draw our characters? Well, one of the main things that a lot of how to draw guides will tell us is, oh, a person can be measured by the number of heads tall they are. And if you don't know what that means you'll take the size of the character's head and you can multiply it a number of times and that'll tell you how tall they are. So like on average, you'll have an adult between 7 and 8 heads tall. This one has a teen at 6 heads tall, a child at 5, and then there's a baby at 3. And this is all well and good. This is, super fantastic. It's a great way to do like a character lineup, figure out like if they're standing there, like how am I gonna do my character design? And that's all great. But there's always one thing that bothered me. What about if my character's moving? What if my character's walking around? What if they happen to be taking a stroll down the street? They might not be that tall anymore. They might be kneeling, they might be running. So through some research that I've done, kind of came across some proportions. So that's what we're here to talk about today. And that is my drawing by proportion. So we have with the characters not standing still. Also, this will help if something seems off, like you're drawing a picture and you're like, that arm seems awful long. What's wrong with that arm? This is what this is going to help with. Also, by knowing these proportions, you can then exaggerate the same areas to get different effects. Do you want a spooky creature? I can show you where to elongate the arms to make them look really spooky, or to look like an orangutan if you want. If you want to be like, oh, I'm going to draw a monkey character. Oh, okay, they got long arms. Oh, I want to draw, what's a good one? There's a lot of like fancy, it's called shoujo comics. And they have like incredibly long legs. But like their arms are also really, really long to match, and everything's still in proportion. And so it still looks like people, but they're like really long legs. All right, so here are our guidelines. All right, so if you've been in science class, this is one that we always usually did in my health class, I remember from way back in the day, is that the height of a person is approximately, and I say approximately because, when you wake up in the morning, you're taller, and then gravity sets in and you get shorter. From tip of one finger to the tip of the other finger, straight across, that's going to be the same length as your character's height. So you can piece together with your fingers just on the screen kind of a ruler of, oh wait, is this person high enough? Like, are they tall enough? Are their arms too long? Are their arms too short? This is my personal favorite because everyone likes to do this one. The length of your foot is the same length as the inside of your lower arm. And I will demonstrate now. Usually at this point during the presentation, everyone's like, wait, hold on, no, I don't believe that. And they all like take off shoes and like measuring their arm. This is probably one of the most frequent proportions I will use when drawing characters. I'm like, why do their feet look so huge on this character? And then I go, oh, whoops, it needs to be smaller. Or it's like, why do they look like they have little tiny like bips for feet? Oh, I need to make that bigger. And then knowing that this is the basic proportion, knowing when to change that, like, oh, I want them to look huge and intimidating. Make it bigger than that. Oh, I want them to look extra dainty. Make it really small. Then using those exaggerations, you can give your characters, as I say, character, and go from there. All right, my next ones. Your elbows are located at your natural waist. If you could see my waist, you'd know that that's where they would be. It's also right around the same spot as your belly button. My other favorite one is if someone's kind of standing just in a neutral pose, the tips of their fingers are going to hit around the middle of their thigh. So like if you're just walking, the other fun thing is these are all things you can test on yourself in like the mirror. It's like, oh wait, no, that is true. My hands are right there. My fingers do end there. All right, so this is something I learned from a few different books. The way that muscles are built in the body. So muscles, they do two functions. You'll have one muscle that will expand, and then the other muscle will contract. That's basically the science of like every muscle in your body in the shortened version. So what'll happen is you'll always have one muscle that's more extended than the other. So your limbs, your arms, your legs, one side's gonna be a little more rounded than the other side. And this will give more of a like realistic muscle to your body. So like, for example, I'm drawing an arm. This isn't even a very muscular person. But when the arm is just kind of neutral, I find that on the outside of the arms, there's a slight bump that tends to be a little higher than it is on the inside. Same thing with the lower arm. And it's very, very slight. It's not huge, just very, very slight. Unless they're like super muscular, then it's very noticeable. Which, if you want to draw super muscular, you can totally do that. It also shows up, it's more prominent on the leg. And then we have the ankle that's doing its own thing. We're going to talk about that in a minute. Pay no attention to that ankle. But the calf, it's going to have a bit more rounded on the outside, and then it's less rounded on the inside. If you're viewing it from the side, the front's flat. Has anyone here played soccer? I've got a couple people. That's cool. Good. In soccer, you wear what's called shin guards to protect your legs when you're like kicking the ball around. And shin guards are completely straight. So that's what I always think of if I'm ever like drawing a leg from the side, is that bottom half is just like straight line. All right, now we're gonna talk about that ankle. So the inside ankle bone is doing its own thing, and it's higher on the inside than the outside. It's being its own rebel and it's going its own direction. And I have proof for that. So this is a back view. I think. Did I do this the wrong direction? I might have. No. Inside ankle bone. Yeah. So the inside, this is the back. We've got the inside right here. Wait, I have a laser pointer. Hey, look at that. So we have the inside. So we've got, I think this is the tibia and fibia. The one right here comes down and it ends in like this little like edge of a ball. So like right about here. And then on the outside of your foot, that bone goes further down to protect your foot from rolling over when you walk. This may or may not help when you fall, walking off a curb, but if you're me. But the reason why it's lower on the outside is because that bone is there protecting your foot. All right, another fun one that I found. When you're drawing, the distance from the hip bone to where your knee is, like where the little round part of your knee, and then from the knee to the very bottom of your foot, like including the whole like height of the foot, those are exactly the same. So when you have someone who is like sitting or kneeling or like their leg is bent, it's not going to extend past the body because it's the same length. And I can demonstrate. You'll notice when people Pay no attention to my toes. Just look at where my heel is. That's the bottom of my feet. It goes right where my hips are. So my legs are folded in half. All right, so that's mostly just the body. Let's talk a little bit about faces. We're not gonna go too deep into faces in this particular workshop, but I like to give a little bit of my suggestions and things that I use when I'm drawing faces. So we have, first off, your eyes are located in the center of your head. And I don't mean like a dot, I mean like height-wise. Your eyes are also approximately 1 eye length apart. And you can look in the mirror, measure an eye, and then put that same measurement between them, and you'll get about the same length. So here's a picture that I've drawn. So, get my pointer. Can you see the pointer? Cool. We've got the whole head here. I didn't draw any hair because the hair is going to get in the way with the measurement. So the eyes are directly in the center of the skull, right here. And then I have between the two eyes, I just took one of these and I copy pasted it right in the center, and it matches about the same. Now I'm sure you're like, hey, I watch a lot of cartoons. Those cartoons don't have an eye space in between those eyes. That's okay. That's okay. That will vary with your style and as it develops. This is just for if you're drawing more like, quote, realistic people. Also, this took me forever to learn, so I'm passing my knowledge on to you. There's something called a 3/4 view. You've got a front view, which is when the character is looking directly onward. You have a side view, which is when the character is looking to the side and you see the profile of the nose. Then you have something that's called the 3/4 view, where they are looking slightly off the screen. When you are drawing that, with whatever eyes you happen to be drawing, the eyes will maintain the same height. However, the one that's further away from the, quote, camera, which is your eyes, like what you're looking at, the one that's further away will get narrower. So it's the same height, but it's skinnier. Same height, but skinnier. That took me forever to learn, so I am passing my knowledge on to you so you do not make my same mistakes. And here's a version of the eye from the side. So when an eye is viewed from the side, the iris that's here is no longer an oval. You're gonna have like a flat side that is gonna be like on the side like where the nose is, and then it like rounds out in towards the head. That way it doesn't look like they've got like eyes popping out of their face unless they're a cartoon character who needs to have eyes popping out of their face. There are exceptions to every rule, I assure you. Other face proportions. Your nose, right where it ends, is located halfway between your eyes and the bottom of your chin. And then in between there, your mouth is located halfway between that. So here's my handy dandy little chart that I've drawn up. So you've got the whole skull, the whole head, right here. The eyes are 1/2 down. So remember we said it was right in the middle. So then halfway between the chin and your eyes, that's where your nose is. Then halfway between the nose and chin, you've got your mouth. These are general guidelines, not rules, not laws, but general guidelines. No one's gonna come and, the art police are not gonna come and find you, don't worry. But it's very helpful in going, wait, are my eyes too high up on my head? Is their nose too long? I draw long noses all the time accidentally. I'm like, what is happening with this face? And I'm like, oh, hold on, erase it, move it up, perfect. So, just having that as a guide of where to put things on the face is really handy. Another fun one, on regular human people, not necessarily small cartoon mouths and things, corners of the mouth, like when you have a full smile, tend to land on the center of the eyes. And that's one of those things where if you go into the mirror and you kind of look and you go, huh, that is true. When you think about it, you're like, oh, hey, and you just put your fingers at the edge of your mouth and you're like, huh, yeah, that does kind of match up. Will it always be that? No. But it's a great way to start. And then also, my other favorite is, where do you put the ears? You've got a person looking at the screen, where do you put their ears? And this will go for any type of ear. Usually if I am drawing a humanoid character, I will start with human ears, but if I want to make them into like an elf or an orc or a gnome or gosh, there's a whole bunch of other things. I can extend this shape into whatever I'm looking for, but I know that this is where it will start. That's where the sound will enter the head. Now, if you're doing other characters that have ears in various other locales, have fun. Sometimes people do animal characters, have fun. Go look up some animals. We're drawing people today. Okay, so that is about the basis of the proportions, which we'll of course hit again as we go from the follow along. And does everyone have a piece of paper or two? And if you don't, go get one. Make sure you also have a pencil and an eraser. And I am going to move over to this table and get myself ready. And we are going to do our follow along. Let me know if we need more paper. I do have some up here. Oh, cool. Excellent. All right. Let me test. Cool. Just making sure you can see my lines. Cool. I am going to draw a bit heavy. You do not have to draw as heavy as I do. I'm drawing heavy so you can see my lines. A couple things to talk about first when it comes to supplies. Draw what you're comfortable with. In a way, there's no bad medium. I have done pictures solely in ballpoint pen. I am a chronic doodler, as I have labeled myself. If there is a quarter page of paper around me, I am drawing on it. This has increased tenfold now that I have an iPad with a sketch feature. So if you prefer a regular pencil with a sharpener, use that. If you prefer a mechanical pencil, use that. The only thing I might recommend is to possibly stay away from the pink erasers. And that's only because after their initial use, they become hardened with age, like a pear, immediately. Like it gets into the air and it just dies, and then it will leave pink smears on your page. It works great for the first 30 seconds, and then the poor thing just gives up on life. My personal favorites are the white erasers, known as like the Mars erasers. You'll see them sometimes like in the art stores. And then my other personal favorite is called the kneaded eraser, which is, I don't think I have it with me, no. It's a gray eraser and it looks like it's made of clay and you can mush it around. And I like to use that to pick up my pencil before I ink things. But when you're just drawing, having a white eraser or anything that's like similar to like that white rubber, perfect. Oh, when did I use it? I tend to use it to pick up my pencil lines before I ink. So like, for example, let's just say I'm gonna draw a stick figure. He's very happy. And I want to, because I do a lot of, I've done a lot of like ink and marker work because I like to also work with traditional as well as digital materials. And what I'll do is I'll take my kneaded eraser, I can mush it up, and I will roll it over the image and it will become lighter. And then I can put my ink over top of it, take my pens, and do the ink on top of it without having it fight the pencil on the paper. So when I go to erase it, there's less chance of smearing. But that's a different type of seminar. I've done those before too. All right, so I'm gonna move that paper to the side because that's my tester. All right, so we are going to draw just like a basic person. And I say a basic person, you can always like change whatever. I tend to draw a male figure, if only because every how to draw book uses a female figure. It's very strange to me. Every how to draw book is like, okay, we're gonna draw your comic book people. Here's a lady. Okay, cool. It took me forever to figure out how to draw guys. So we're gonna start with that base today. And then you can change any of the proportions you wish as we go along. Feel free to change stuff up, but I will be doing the basic figure here. So you have your main piece of paper. And what I'm gonna recommend, a couple things. Oh, let me get my tester page. First off, things that will make it easier to draw. Draw lightly. You do not have to like grind into the paper. I understand I have a death grip on my pencil. I will get what's called the claw if I draw for too long. So try and relax. Everyone's an artist here. We're in good company. The other thing that I love to recommend, and it's a very common art technique, instead of drawing with just your wrist, which is great for tiny details, like you're like, oh, let me draw an eye. Okay, I got that. If you're doing just a sketch, you can hold your wrist steady and move more of your arm as a whole piece, and that will cut down on muscle issues. As a person with tendinitis, I understand this. But if you don't and are not able to do any of those, that's okay. It is a skill developed by time and practice. So the more you draw, the better you'll get, just inherently. Your really awesome picture today will still be awesome, but you can draw an even awesomer picture later. So let us go on our journey. All right, so I've got my piece of paper. We can see the whole thing, right? Yeah. And so you've got about the center right here. I will start in the center at the top, and I'm gonna draw a circle. I'm starting up here because I'm going to cover the entire paper. You can start smaller if you wish. This is going to be the base of our head. Make sure that's nice and up, okay. Then once I've drawn the circle, we're gonna have this character looking straight forward because it's the easiest shape to draw at this time. So I am going to draw very lightly. It's gonna look kind of like a target for just a moment. It's like a plus sign right in the center. And if your lines are really sketchy, that's totally fine. It's all good. If your lines aren't sketchy, that's also good. I tend to, in a lot of my pictures, I will put like this target onto the circle where I want the head so I get an idea of where the character is looking. This will change. Like if they're looking to the side, I will bend the image like it's going around like a ping pong ball, depending on which way they're looking. But today, we're just looking forward. So now, I'm going to draw 2 diagonal lines heading towards the center. It's very slight, and it's gonna go to about the bottom of the circle. Once you've done that, draw another 2 lines that are going to bring those together into a point. We have a chin line. Now, what's fun with chin lines is once you kind of get used to like drawing people, you can get really creative with your shapes. You can make them round, you can make them square, you can make them really pointy. And it's going to give you different feelings. Like if I have, ooh, this guy's a villain, let's give him some angry eyebrows. Like, depending on the shape or the size of the face and the head, you might get a different feeling about that particular character. Now, what I will do is go about the circle and kind of just finish that off. And if you want, you can erase these little extra, I call them the little antenna, because I will draw lines larger than they need to be. And that will make our head. We're not going to worry about a face. We're not going to worry about anything on there. We're just drawing the body. All right. So from here, we're going to draw what's called our first gesture line. Gesture lines are lines that are used to show us action. And in this case, it tends to be the spine. It's going to be a very like long curve, looks like an S that's stretched out. So starting from the chin, just kind of draw a very slightly curved line that comes down. Doesn't matter how long right now, it can be very long. It looks like a balloon at this moment. We've drawn our first balloon. Congratulations. Happy birthday. And then from here, we can start putting on parts of our skeleton. I will draw a very, pun slightly intended, bare bones version of a skeleton to kind of just give me an idea of, well, where are the parts of the arm? Where's the rib cage? Where are the hips? Like that. You don't have to draw the super, detailed skeleton we saw in like slide 3. Don't worry, we're not gonna do that. So what I like to do is a little bit below the head, I'm gonna draw 2 lines that come out, and they're 2 separate lines because these, and they can go up pretty far right now because we're gonna erase those down. These are gonna be our collarbones. And if you haven't noticed, your collarbones are 2 separate pieces because your arms will move independently of each other. So you'll have one side that goes down and one side that goes up. It's not like a flat teeter-totter. So then from here, we're gonna draw one of my favorite parts, the rib cage. For those who don't know, a rib cage is just a big W. So what I'll do, I will rounded, comes up a little round, and then, there we go. Just a big curvy W. Now this will also change its shape depending on which way the character is facing. For example, if I have a character who's facing to the left, the W will get squished to the left. And if your character is facing to the right, it gets squished to the right. And what this represents, let me fill in some bones for you. Here's a sternum. And then we have our ribs. There's more ribs than this, but I'm doing the easy version. I like doing the plain version because I'm going to erase all those lines eventually anyway, so I don't need to draw in all those ribs. Now, one thing we didn't talk about is how far down is the ribs versus the waist, or versus the hips. And they're approximately, once again, all guidelines, approximately the same length. So I can take my hands, measure about the size of my rib cage, measure down, and that means my hip line is going to be about here. And then I can erase this line, because now we know how long the spine is. Oh, excellent. Yeah, I can do that. So I take my hands, take my 2 fingers, and I measure the height of the rib cage, and then I just move it down to here, and then that's where I'll draw my line. You're welcome. Now, another fun fact, approximately, once again, big approximations, depending on how you want to draw your character, the top half will be about the same length as the bottom half. So in the same way that we did the rib cage to the hips, I'm going to take my fingers, measure from top of skull to where my hip line is, move my hands down, and that's about where my feet are going to end up. And even just looking at the picture now, I'm relieved I didn't draw the character too low to have their feet go off the page. This has happened to me frequently. This is also a bonus of if you draw digitally, you can then either increase the size of your canvas or just move the picture up. I have totally done that before. But when drawing traditionally, you kind of have to do a little bit of hoping and praying that it's going to fit on the page. I have many a sketch where it's like, whoop, there goes their feet. So now we're going to put in their legs. First thing I want to do, the leg that is on our left, I'm just going to put a line that goes straight down. Don't worry about putting a foot in just yet, it's just a line. And then on the leg that is on our right, I'm going to do a slightly diagonal line. I had to think about that word for a second. I'm like, the word where it's tilted, diagonal. Okay. From here, I will then, there's a lot of like visual approximations. This is why I'm not as big on let me get my ruler out, measure the number of heads, because everybody's a little bit different. Everybody's ears are kind of like not even on the same height. Like one ear is higher than the other. If you have glasses and set your glasses down on a table, they will be crooked. It's very interesting. I find it fascinating. So when I'm drawing people, instead of being very mathematical about it, I'll be very, let's just measure with my fingers and see what's there. And then that'll get a more natural feel to how it looks. And also it's faster to draw. And then the faster you draw, the more pictures you can draw and the more cool stuff you can make. Or maybe that's just me. All right, so on the legs, I'm gonna go to the leg and measure about in the center. And I'm gonna put a little dot. That's gonna be like, hey, there's a knee there. It's gonna give me a reminder. Now we're gonna put our stand-ins for feet, which for the moment are going to be a triangle. The leg that's here on our left, this is going to be a leg that is pointed to the side. So it's going to be a longer triangle. So the foot, right now, because we don't have arms to measure off of, we're just gonna kind of wing it and go, all right, that's a foot. So I have a triangle, looks kind of like a flag, comes off of the leg line. And then I usually put a circle right down here behind the triangle, especially if the foot is to the, like, open to the side, because that is the heel bone. And the back of the foot has a really cool, like, it looks like a doorknob. From all the times I drew skeletons in art class, this is one of my favorite bones, is that heel bone, because it just looks so interesting. So I always make that little circle to remind you, oh, this is where the heel's gonna go around. Now on the right leg, on our right, I'm gonna draw a smaller triangle, but no circle. So on the inside, there's like a little triangle, and on the outside comes a little bigger. That's about the best I can explain it. I apologize, I don't have any good measurements. It's like a triangle that leans inward. And it's gonna be the same height. Don't draw this line, but I'm just doing it to show you. It'll be the same height as the other foot you drew. You don't have to draw that line, that was just me showing. Now, we're not gonna think about legs for a while. We're gonna go back up towards the arms because we're still putting in kind of like our little skeleton. Going up here, back to where our rib cage is, up at the top, I'm gonna put 2 decent sized circles. These are gonna be our shoulder-ish. The more muscular a character is, the bigger these circles would be. And also, if I go too fast, do let me know. I just get so excited about art. I sometimes talk too fast. Not necessarily. If you have a really muscular female form, those circles will be bigger. It's all dependent on the size that you want to make the character. So next, on our left, we're gonna have an arm that is going to be at rest. Now, we have kind of a figure to work with, and we know that the arm and the hand is gonna come down to the middle of the thigh. So I can just draw a line that comes down at it's got like a slight curve, comes from my circle down to here. That's gonna be where the fingers end. And then much like the legs, I'm going to go measure halfway and put a dot. And then I'll pause for a sec. I'll have some water. This one, yes, that is going to be the elbow. Which is another proportion that I didn't have in the presentation itself, but if you fold your arm up, you'll notice like your palm kind of, and your fingers will come up to your shoulder. So it's about in the center. It's an approximation. And then at the bottom, I'm just gonna put an oval right now because I'm like, that's a hand. Hands are hard to draw. I love drawing hands. I used to hate drawing hands. I was that artist who's like, yes, I'm going to draw a character. And I would draw them out and be like, yes, I'm drawing a person. And they all looked like this. Like, yes, I always keep my hands behind my back. Absolutely, or in my pockets. I never show a hand, yes. And that's okay if you do that too. But I encourage you, draw hands. Now, the next hand that I want to do, or the next arm, I should say, that's on our right, I want to actually have the hand on his hip. Now that we have measurements, we're going to use our fingers. So I'm going to measure the first part. And then using that same measurement, make another angle. So basically it's like I'm taking the wire frame and I'm bending it. And then I'm putting a circle. And so this is where my example of what if my character is moving or doing something, how can I tell if they are in proportion? I can take this inside here. Let's take this length. I've matched the foot. Hooray. Now there's all sorts of things with like foreshortening and like if stuff is bending, like going to the back or the front, things will get larger or smaller. That comes in due time. We're just gonna draw a basic picture. I always recommend never stop learning, always keep reading. I can never recommend enough like just checking out all sorts of like how to draw books. There are good ones and there are not so good ones. Read through them all. The best way that I've found to tell if a how to draw book is good or bad is kind of what they have, I've seen online, is like the owl example, where it's like, draw a circle, draw the cross sign in it, so you get the, like, here's your shape, now draw the rest of the image. And they don't give you any knowledge on how to do any of that. Or it's all very specific of like, now draw this one particular nose shape, draw this one particular eye shape, where it's handy to draw that particular art style. It's not gonna be transitive to other art styles, if that makes sense. Where there are other books where you'll read and be like, here are your basic proportions, here's how a person is set up, here's some cool poses that they might do. And they'll show examples of those. And I find those more enriching when it comes to art rather than the 2 steps, draw an owl. But I feel like every book has at least something you can get from it. I don't know what books they have at this particular library in the how to draw section though. I like to collect them, unfortunately, so I will purchase them and keep them in my own collection. I have many ancient how to draw books that I would love to like recommend to people, but I don't even think they're in print anymore, and I'm so sad. All right, so we now have our basic skeleton. Now we can start making it a person. Let us begin with the neck. We're gonna go to the head right here, and I'm just gonna put 2 lines that come down right out of the center. Now, Depending on your character or how muscular or thin they are, depending on what you want to do, you can increase or decrease the size of the neck. The skinnier the neck, the daintier the character. The larger the neck, the more muscular the character. Do not go all the way down to the collarbone. Leave a little bit of space. And once you've drawn those two lines, draw another two that go diagonally down to the shoulder circles. So this is actually a muscle that is connected to our neck, which you can feel. It tends to get a knot in it if you're stressed, especially if you're like me, and then you need to have someone come and work it out. But it is like the muscle that kind of like connects everything up there. I think so. It's like a trapezius or something like that. One of those. Upper trapezius. Thank you. I know the bone names, the muscle names always elude me. So once you've drawn those two, you can then draw around the circle. Now I am leaving a little bit of a gap around the circle, and the reason for this is because what I have drawn is a basic skeleton. I am now adding layers onto my skeleton, so there will be muscles under there, there's organs, there are things. I'm not gonna vacuum seal this poor guy. I'm also giving a roundness because I tend to, we're doing a more, quote, realistic body shape as opposed to a cartoony body shape, which might look more like an example is like a rubber hose animation, or like along lines like Adventure Time, or some of the more, I'm trying to think of, like, I think Owl House had some really good designs of things. I've really liked that show, where it's like, yeah, they're realistic, but also at the same time very simple lines because they had to draw a lot because they're animated. So next, we're going to avoid the arms for the minute. We're just not going to look at those for a sec. We're going to go on to our torso. And I am going to draw a line that comes down from the rib cage and connects to my waist area. It's going to be closer to the leg on the left than it is the leg on the right on our directions, because this leg is facing forward, this leg is facing to the side, my apologies, and this leg is facing forward. No worries. Sorry, I had gotten my directions mixed up, so I had stumbled over that. So when you bring this line from the rib cage down, it will be a little bit closer to the line I have for my leg that is facing to the outside. For the leg that is facing towards us, it's got more of a gap between the lines. And we'll see why in just a moment. So starting with the leg on the left, I am going to just draw two lines coming down. This is going to be the thigh. Don't worry, we'll get to waist and things in just a moment. I'm going to show you my pro tip for drawing people while you're sitting in a public place so they don't stare at you funny. On the left, I'm gonna bring that line down pretty straight and kind of connect the lines. There's gonna be a gap, just basic figure. I'm gonna leave this here so we can all catch up. I will have some water. All right. Now we're going to go back to the left leg that we just drew. We drew the top. Let's draw the bottom. I'm going to draw a straight line. Remember when I talked about that, the shins, like the shin guards from soccer? If your leg is open to the side, so you see like the inside of your leg, the one side's going to just be a straight line. It's just bone. On the back side of your leg, there is a muscle right about here, and I tend to put in this like oval shape. This is your calf muscle. And you can draw a rounded line, looks like an S. And then connect all your lines. So you've made it this far. We're getting into the complicated part. How you feeling? Good? All right. Okay, so now, remember how we drew that circle where the foot is? That's the heel. So I am going to draw a line that just curves around that, and a line that's going to go down to the triangle and around. And you have a foot. That's the easy leg. We haven't done the side leg yet. Remember when I was talking about those uneven limbs with the muscles? Well, that's what we're gonna have here. So I'm gonna draw a little dash line that's lower on the inside, higher on the outside. And starting from where my knee is, it's gonna curve a little bit on the outside, go down towards my foot, and then it'll go down and then curve out and inside the foot. So there's a little rounded part here. It's very, very slight. If you don't have much there for a curve, that's okay. And then, because we have a foot, I'm going to just bring my line to curve around this triangle and just leave it there for the moment. That is my foot because it's facing forward, the foot itself. All right, time for everyone's favorite part. Oh no, I'm drawing a figure in public and I need to make sure I know where things like pants will go. How do I do this? All right, let me show you my lovely cheat lines. So what I like to do is when I'm drawing a figure before I put all the clothes and stuff on, because I'll draw the under figure and then I'll put the character's design on top because I like to figure out where they're posed first. I like to pretend everyone's in either like a dance leotard or a swimsuit. It's the easiest thing to do. It's also safe for work. So, if you've ever seen a dance leotard, I used to take ballet, so that's why it's the first thing that comes to my mind, is there's gonna be a curved line that comes around, in this case, the right leg on our right. And then a curved line the other direction on our left. And then I just put a flat line at the bottom. Now I know where the pants go. And then also when people will be like, oh, hey, what you drawing? They're not going to be like, ooh, and then everyone gets all flustered and embarrassed when you're sitting in Panera trying to draw, listening to your tunes on your phone. Ask me how I know. This works with both male and female forms. I just like to also use it to kind of give me an idea of, okay, which leg is kind of in front, because the one that's in front is going to have this upward curve, whereas the leg that's in the back is going to have that more downward curve. And then you can erase a couple lines if you want. All right. We're getting close. We're getting close. Now it's time to do some arms. Let's do the arm at rest, because that'll be the easiest. So I'm going to, starting from my shoulder rounded area, this right here, I'm just going to draw a line that connects, that goes down to my dot. And then the inside line is just going to go into the torso, because it's kind of behind the torso. I don't have to necessarily draw the rest of that line. I'll make that line a little more obvious for y'all. There. Once you've drawn down to the elbow, we're going to put another dotted line that's going to be higher on the outside, lower on the inside. And just like we did the bottom leg, it's going to come out just a little bit on the outside at the top, and then a little bit outside at the bottom, if you so desire. And then, because this is not a hand drawing seminar, because those are quite the beast to draw, I usually just put like a mitten shape at the bottom. That's my stand-in hand. It looks like an oven glove, or like I'm wearing mittens in the winter. Add fingers at your own leisure. Now for the most difficult part, this gosh darn arm. So the arm that is on our right is a little bit forward. So it's going to actually start a little bit inside the torso, like right in here inside the rib cage. I'm like, what is this thing I drew? The rib cage. So starting from the shoulder, I'm gonna draw a line that comes down to the dot, and then on the inside, a slightly shorter line. And then I have this little like line that comes down. That's just the little muscle that's like right in here next to like your pectoral muscle. It's the one that like holds your arms in. It's like keeps them from flying away. Now, much like the arm we have on the left, what I will do sometimes when I'm drawing, I'll rotate my paper So the arm I'm drawing is now completely up and down. So I can draw my dotted line that's higher on the outside, lower on the inside. And draw that slightly curved line on the outside, slightly curved line on the inside, and it's going to narrow at the bottom. Now, notice this line right here. You don't want to circle it, but I'm going to do it to show you. I have these lines overlapping. The one at the bottom is going in because it's in front. So then when you move it, you now have an arm in front. So that's another thing to keep an eye on is like, oh, if my picture looks weird, maybe I have something going the wrong direction. Maybe a line's in front of another that it's not supposed to be. And then from here, you just kind of put another mitten. Oh, it's right here. And then, oh, not at all. Yep. Okay, so here, let me zoom in. Because I can do that, I discovered. Okay, so right here, I'll erase my line so I can redraw it for you. Here's my dot, here's my line. I turned my paper so this line is going straight up and down as I'm looking at it. I drew my dotted line like I did on the other arm. Starting from the outside line, drew my slight curve, bring that in. Then on the inside, drew my curve and brought it in. And the difference is, so right here, where the arm comes down, this lower arm, this line is coming in front, because this arm is in front. And it's going to give us that perspective. This is why I love the ability to rotate my paper. I'll always have, whenever I'm drawing in like a sketchbook or something, I will have a big enough space where I can like rotate the sketchbook, rotate the piece of paper, or if you're drawing digitally, which is one of my newest ways of doodling, they have the ability to like rotate the actual canvas on the screen, which is the best, because sometimes lines are just easier to draw in a certain direction. And instead of trying to fight your arm, you just draw it in a way that's easier for your muscles. So now, essentially, we have all drawn a body. So at this point, now we get to have the fun part. You can put clothes on this person. You can change any of the sizes. You can put a face on this person. You can give them ears. You could give them face. You can go in and erase lines that you don't want anymore. Give them hair. We didn't really talk much about hair this time around. Give them anime hair. I am an anime protagonist. I usually just like, oh, here's this. And then usually, once I've drawn the clothes, I'll go in and erase any of the body lines that I don't need. and what's called tightening up the pencils, which is basically erasing any extraneous pencil lines, making it cleaner, making it look more refined and whatnot. But feel free to take this time to add any particular details. Sign your work, very important. However you want to do that. And then we have about 15-ish minutes, I believe. So if anyone has any questions, do let me know. If you want to find me on the internet, you can find me. I'm mostly on Twitter, Instagram. I need to actually update my Instagram. A lot of places, if you look for Karmada Arts, KARMADA_ARTS, that is where you'll find me. Oh, I also stream on Twitch. And I do art streaming as well as video games. So feel free to check that out. It's also at Karmada_arts. I try to keep everything vaguely spelled the same. An email for me? It would be, what would be the best one? Probably at Karmada, KARMADA, just without the arts, because I had that one a bazillion years ago. Yep, at gmail.com. I'm also on Facebook, but I don't post much there. I just have a presence. Yes.
How are you going to make this without color?
Oh, how to make it without having it be all like color and stuff? Yeah. So what I'll do is I actually will shade in what I'm doing, depending on the color, because I actually like to work in black and white when I'm doing comics. I've only recently been going into color recently, as I say the same word twice. And what I'll do is if there's something that I want to have be a different shade of another color, I will use my pencil and I will carefully, in the same direction, shade lightly or darkly, depending on if I want it to be a really vibrant color or a really dark color. So yeah, so then if I want to erase the rib cage, I can do that. Forgot to do that beforehand. And so then I'll do, so a lot of my sketches are just in pencil. And to get the different textures and things, I will just use a different hardness of my sketch lines. So like, for example, let's say this is like a light pair of blue jeans. I'm just gonna use this one leg here. Compared to like, let's say his shirt is like a dark blue, this is gonna be a yellow, and his jeans are lighter. I'll use the lines more spread out. And that for me is like a shorthand for a lighter color. Mm-hmm.
I want my character to be like a
Yeah.
How would I do like the chest?
Oh, so let me just do that real quick. Let me draw another one real fast here. I can show you how to do that. All right, so you've got your figure. He's like this. This is the very, very fast version. Okay, so I've got the hula skirt here, the arm here. The pectoral muscles will be about a little bit above where the rib cage is, and it will match up with that arm that's in the front, so that little like line that we drew. And then I'll tend to put the center line to define them. I've seen a lot of tutorials describe it as kind of like almost like a bow tie shape. It's like, that's your pecs. Like that. Oh, it's all good. It's all good. Every picture is a wonderful journey. I have saved so many pictures from my younger days. I want to say I really started keeping my sketchbooks when I hit college, which was in 2000. And trying not to age myself too bad. And I want to say I have filled 25 of those, and I switched to digital like 6 years ago. And I like to use Clip Studio Paint. If you are trying to get into digital, Clip Studio Paint is probably my personal favorite because I've managed to have it so it makes me feel like I am using a regular pencil on paper, because I have a cover for my iPad that makes it feel like the texture of paper. And then like Clip Studio Paint has brushes that look like pencils, like when you're drawing on a piece of paper. So I'll have the stylus and I'm drawing on my iPad and it looks like I'm drawing on a piece of paper. So I have not used much of that yet, but I know that is also a big favorite of people. So Clip Studio Paint is definitely more for, are you familiar with Photoshop? Go with that. If you like a lot of menus and things, go that way. Procreate has less menus on the screen at the time, so it's a little bit pared down, but it's still a very powerful program, and you can get a lot of really fun brushes and stuff from other people. They're both very good programs. Procreate is a once and done. You pay like $10 and you get the program. Clip Studio is a monthly fee, but there's like a smaller version and a bigger version. It also depends on what you want to do with it. I tend to use Clip Studio for making comics because that's where my heart lies. That's what I want to do. It's just write and draw comics and comic-y things. Whereas like Procreate is more of like artsy, let's do paintings and things. Yes. Oh, to my picture? Yeah. Absolutely. Draw for us. I have spent many an hour in the lunch eating areas of whatever schools I have been at, and I am used to having people watch me draw. Which is why it's like, wait, people draw on Twitch? You're really? Cool. Fantastic. I'll do that. People are like, don't you get nervous? I'm like, I've drawn in the middle of a lunchroom. I'm fine. So one of the fun things, while we've got a few minutes, I can give you my slight cheats on feet. So I hate drawing feet. They're very annoying. Drawing them from the side is pretty easy. So, you just kind of follow the triangle shape and you go from there. But like drawing them from the front, boy, is this a pain. This is a pain. So what I will have, let me get another piece of paper out. Drawing. Also, you can see I've smeared my paper. I'm like, my hand is just everywhere. So drawing a foot from the front, starting with my triangle. So, quote, zooming in here. This is the shape that we had. What I will usually do is I call it the triangle that's been punched in the side. And it's a triangle that has an indentation on the outside of it, like the outside part of it. Because what you have is this rounded area in front. This is like the top part of the arch of your foot, like the very front. And then this is the upper area that leads into the ankle. Let me show you my favorite cheats for toes. First off, make a character wear shoes. Then you don't have to draw toes. There you go. No, but like, let's say you have a character who's wearing sandals and you want to have them standing in, oh no, you see their toes. I will start, let me lighten my lines here a little bit. I start with the big toe. This happens to be on our right, so it's their left foot. And I draw really wide, like open sevens. They look like this, like little arrows. And it has a flat bottom. So the big toe is obviously large. The other 4 toes are smaller. There'll be a little curved open arrow with a slightly curved bottom attaching it. And then, oh look, I drew too much line. We'll just erase that. And whoop. Instant cheat feet. You can even draw toenails if you want. Oh, that's my signature. Because I always encourage people to put their signatures on things, whether it's if you're gonna put it online, put a watermark or like put your name on something, because you should be proud of your work. All your work is precious. Dates are good too. The nice thing about digital is you'll have that usually in like the metadata, but definitely if you're drawing like something traditional, that's why I'll at least have the year. Once you have enough images that you've stored up over the years, you'll just store them by year. You don't have to save everything. Otherwise, you'll have a lot of things. But I, same. But I like keeping like the bigger sketchbooks and things like that. I do a lot of like tabletop role play games, so that's a lot of inspiration for drawing for me. And so I have them like categorized by, oh, I was in this story, or this was happening, or oh, I'm writing this at this time. So it's always fun to go back. I was actually scanning in my old sketchbooks just to have them on the computer because they were starting to fall apart. They had been looked through so much. All right, it is 7:25. Are there any other questions? Yes. Rectangle? So right below, like where the pectorals are, and then you've got like where the rib cage is, bring it in around the middle, because that's where the belly button would be. That tends to be where the normal like waist will be. Also, if anyone, I used to do Ren fairs. That's usually where the corset cinches in. It's like, so if you've ever been to a Ren fair, you can always be like, ah, I see, that is where your waist is. Yes. Absolutely. Take your picture home. It is yours. It is your creation. Congratulations, you have all drawn a person. I want you to feel proud of yourself. I know I usually have a lot of people who will come in and be like, I can't draw a thing. And then they're like, I drew a person. Hang it up on the proverbial fridge. I'm proud of all of you. Thank you so much. You are welcome. Not that I am aware of, but we will have to see. Just let me know. I love to teach, so I have lots and lots of knowledge.